How do you extend the life of a game after the main content is complete? There are two ways. One is for the developers to continue to add new content, and the other is mods. As of now, there is no indication that Grounded will receive new content after 1.0 other than some cosmetic things like new building pieces and new stuff bugs. In this video, I want to discuss 5 mods I think could add life to the game, but stick around to the end to hear why I don't think any of them will ever happen. Before we begin, I want to thank Handsome Ivan, Lyndon Dade, Mateo Solis, Matthew Campbell, Stephen Van, the Overseer 91, and all my other channel members and patrons. Check the video description for links to become a channel member or patron. Thanks again to all my channel members and patrons. Let's get started. There's a reason why games like Stardew Valley, Terraria, Minecraft are still being played by tens of thousands, and in some cases, like Minecraft, millions of people, more than a decade after they've come out. And the reason for that is twofold, as I mentioned in the intro. It's because those games have continued to get updates after 1.0, and for all of them, they also have a strong modding community. So those are the two things that add life to a game, because honestly, you can only play a game so many times and do the same things over and over again. So what I want to do in this video is I want to look at 5 mod ideas that I came up with that I think could possibly add life to Grounded, because I don't foresee them, at least right now, unless they surprise us. There's no indication there's going to be new additional content that's going to add any story or stuff like that after 1.0. So the first one I came up with was Perpetual Darkness, and it just so happened as I loaded in my main survival world, it is about to be nighttime, or it is nighttime. And Perpetual Darkness, basically what that would be a mod where it is always dark. And now, why would this be interesting? Well, we know when it's dark out, that's when the wolf spiders tend to come out on the prowl the most. They do come out during the day sometimes, but more often than not, they're out at nighttime, so it's definitely dangerous. In the early game, when you're not near the lighting areas, like the lights that are in the garden lights here, or maybe you don't have a torch yet, being in the dark or having your torch burn out, especially in some of these areas in the map, can be just super dangerous, super scary. So having it be dark 100% of the time could make it interesting, could add some life to the game. Maybe you do a full playthrough where it's completely dark, and I just think that would be an interesting mod. The second mod idea I came up with is one that I've seen in other games before. It's called Epic Loot. So basically the way an Epic Loot mod would work would be that mobs would have a chance of dropping epic loot. What could epic loot be? It could be special parts that are used to make special weapons. It could be they just drop special weapons or special armor. In the case of Grounded, as an example, like this roly-poly here, we'll just kill him real quick and we'll see what he drops. More likely than not, he's just going to drop tough gunk. He's going to drop roly-poly parts and maybe some roly-poly shells. And honestly, obviously, if you need those resources, it would be interesting, but how much better would it be if every time you killed an enemy, when you popped them out, instead of just getting the 2 roly-poly shells or 2 tough gunk and the 5 roly-poly parts, what if there was just like a little animation or something, kind of like the crit animation, and bam, you got either maybe a special version of one of those parts, or you got a special weapon or special armor. It would just give a reason to go around fighting everything, because you'll never know what you could get. Now, what could these epic loots have? As an example, like having a weapon or armor, maybe they could be enchanted with special powers. Maybe in the case of this game, maybe you could get a spicy mint mace or a salty Coltana, or maybe your armor would have some kind of special abilities like movement speed bonuses or something like that. Or maybe you could even have ones that were detrimental to make the game harder. Maybe your weapon has half durability. Maybe your armor makes you slower or something like that, or uses more stamina. It could be anything that would make the game just add more reason to fight everything, because eventually you're going to run out of the need to get resources. And I know I've seen people use it in other games before, and I'm definitely going to be interested in trying it out in other games. One specifically is Valheim. I've played through Valheim a couple times vanilla, and I definitely want to play through it using the Epic Loot mod, because it added all that kind of stuff as well as some other things like magical abilities and things like that. And it just basically, once it'll keep you playing the game, because it's not the same content over and over again. The third mod idea I came up with is going to be called No Haze. And in No Haze, the way it would work would be you would start a new game and the haze would already be plugged. So the Weed Killer 420 canister would be plugged from the start, so infected insects and strange spores would be all over the backyard from the beginning. Now, what would that do? I think that would, personally for me, that would add challenge to the game early on, because having the infected insects, which are going to be just tougher variants of their regular versions, would be just more challenging. Having the strange spores blocking places, so that like coming up here and having to try to cut these down, that would just make the game more difficult. It would just add a little bit of extra, just add something different to it. And specifically like the infected wolf spider, imagine the first time going to the oak tree. If you're going in there, you go to repair burgle and come out and bam, there's an infected wolf spider. Now I know for some of you, and even me who like just personally don't like enjoy having spiders in the game, that might be a little bit terrifying, but it would certainly add a little more danger. Instead of being able to like freely just wander around the oak tree collecting acorns and stuff early on, collecting all the sap that's over there, that would just add a little bit of something to it, and it would just make the game a little bit different. You'd then be able to go down into the haze area much sooner, but at the same time you'd have to deal with the army of infected larvae that are down there, the infected ladybugs, the infected mites, the infected weevils, all that kind of stuff. So I just think that would be a different twist on the game, being able to go there. I know you can plug the haze pretty early on, maybe like 5-ish hours, 10 hours into the game, depending on how fast you speed run through it. But I think that would just add a little bit of a different playthrough if you were able to do that at least once. Fourth mod I came up with would be better mutations. Now, better mutations, what that would do would be mutations that are tied to actions such as weapon-based, resource collecting, etc., would be converted to skills that start at level 0 and progress up to level 100 or level 50, whatever would make sense. Each skill can be leveled by killing enemies or collecting resources, and XP is gained for each action. Right now, things like the chopper, you basically have to kill 50, 100, or 200, 50 or 100 or 150 enemies. And this goes up. This adds, I think, like 30%. What does this do? Axes are extended and it gives you a chance of stagger enemies. Like, this doesn't even add extra damage. The way I would make this work would be, as an example, like if you were using bows, every time you kill an enemy with a bow, you get XP for sharpshooter, but sharpshooter would be different. Instead of it just having a chance to root enemies, maybe at each interval of like maybe 10, at each level it goes up, it adds like a small percentage of extra damage. Maybe it reduces the reload speed. Maybe at every so many like 5 or 10 levels, it increases the chance to stagger or has some kind of bonus effect, something like that. And then another one would be Rock Cracker, which is right here. Rock Cracker just gives you pebble harvest speed, so you basically can break rocks faster. What if instead of this, it would, as you level it up, it would give you faster harvesting speed, reduced stamina usage while you're doing it, and also maybe every 5 or 10 levels, when you're harvesting, you'd have increased resource harvested. So maybe when you break quartzite, maybe at level 0 you get 4 quartzite, but at level 10 you get 5, at level 20 you get 6, and then so on and so forth. So it just ends up giving you a reason to use it, and also making harvesting resources a little bit easier. Same thing with the weapon-based ones. It would allow you to have different builds and stuff like that if every one of these was just giving you extra weapon damage, extra, like specifically the spear, the javelineer, and the assassin. If you could get it to where the spears and the daggers were doing comparable damage to maybe like the base level clubs and maces and swords right now, that would make those much more viable late game, just give you a different diversity in builds, and also give you a reason to just level them up other than just getting the kills with them, because most of these I never use, to be honest. So I think it would just make it where more of these mutations would be useful, and you could actually, like, even the ones that are down here, like the ones you unlock by, where is it, Cardio Fan, Martine, maybe this one, just as you swim longer, it maybe just gives you you can hold your breath even longer, you can swim even faster, maybe you can dive faster, just things like that. Maybe you can see better underwater. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, but if each one of these had more than what they have now, where some of them just have one phase and others are just like you just unlock them and never use them, I think that would be an interesting mod to have, and just add more content to the game. The fifth and final mod idea I came up with, I'm calling better faction reactivity. This is the raid base I built in my main survival world. I built this specifically to attract raids to it. Unfortunately, I don't get raided very often, even though I try to go out of my way to kill things. Right now, the only raids you can get are red ant, black ant, termite, spiders, but the spiders are only going to be orb weavers and orb weaver juniors, mosquitoes, bees, and infected, but the infected does not have the infected wolf spider. They took that out for now. They'll probably put it, I think they're hinting that they're going to put that back in at some point. The way better faction reactivity will work would be, first of all, you'd have to have faction rates turned on. So if you have faction reactivity turned off, so if you go to the settings, so we go to custom game setting, which I can't do here because this is not a custom game mode. Go down here to faction reactivity. If you have this toggled off, this mod would not work. It would only work if you have that toggled on. So assuming you want to toggle it on, basically what it would be every type of aggressive and neutral bug in the game could raid. As an example, I just killed that roly-poly earlier. The roly-polies are neutral. They will attack if I decide I want to attack them. They currently do not raid. Imagine getting raids by roly-polies or black ox beetles or even infected wolf spiders or any other bug that's around the map that currently does, specifically like ladybirds. Like those would be cool to be able to have those. But of course, we'd have to have more traps with those, so hopefully those would be added as well. The way it would also work would be a quality of life thing would be there would be a meter. Now, I would say probably what you could do is you would either toggle the meter on the UI right here, and the meter will basically be, it would fill up as you're triggering the raids. So maybe it could also be over here somewhere. Maybe there's a new tab. Maybe it's under data. I don't know. Somewhere over here on one of these tabs could have a meter that for each of the different factions, it could be on the bug cards. Maybe you click on the bug card and there's this little meter here that shows how angry they are from 0 to 100. And the more of them you kill, the longer you spend in their area, the closer it gets to 100. If you stop killing them and stay out of their area, the meter would slowly go down. Because right now, I believe the faction reactivity just builds up to a point and then you get raided. That's it. There's no way of lowering it. So that would give you a way of specifically like forcing raids. Like, oh, if I want to get raided by ladybirds, I'll just go kill the ladybirds every single day, every time they respawn until they raid my base. That way you could farm the parts. And then of course, in addition to this, the last thing would be all raid enemies would have their normal loot pools instead of only dropping mostly the basic parts. The last couple times I've been raided, it's been by red ants. I don't know why, because I haven't been killing red ants. And the raids have been kind of underwhelming because I'm built here in the upper yard over here by the bike. Sure, you've seen this if you watched any of my previous videos or if you've watched any of my live streams. This is where my main base is. And basically what ends up happening is the red ants or anything that raids me only comes from this direction for some reason. And typically during like the first wave, it's like a really minuscule wave because the enemies maybe it's because they don't spawn up here naturally. They just don't come up here. So the raids are just kind of underwhelming. I've had the same thing happen with the spider raids as well. There's just not many of them. And what ends up happening is just easy. The last one I had, I killed all the red ants that came. It said they actually destroyed part of my base, which they did not, because none of my other bases were destroyed at all. But I ended up getting mostly red ant parts and not getting, I think maybe got one red ant, had maybe one ant mandible. I can't even remember if we got any ant mandibles, to be honest. But in the case of this mod, what it would do would be, if you get attacked by red soldier ants, they're going to drop the red ant mandibles and stuff like that. So you can actually get the better parts and not just have to worry about defending your base with getting just really no reward. The same thing could also be applied to the waft emitters, because right now people are like, well, you should use waft emitters if you want to trigger raids. Yeah, but there's no point, because you're inserting a bunch of resources, you get attacked, then you have to repair your base, and you end up getting back less parts than you put into the waft emitter. So I don't see any point to that. So those are the 5 mod ideas I came up with. Let me know if you have any others in the comments down below. I'm sure you guys probably do, especially if you've played other games in the past or if you played mods in the past. Now I want to get to real quick before we wrap this up why I think that these mods will never happen. And the reason for this is twofold. First of all, if you go over to the Nexus mods page for Grounded, there's only, I checked it yesterday, there was 47 mods on there. And of those mods, only I think 4 or 5 have been updated in 2022. The rest of them have not been updated, which means there's been multiple updates since they've come out. And that means almost guaranteed they're not going to work, because typically with early access games, when a big update comes out, it usually breaks mods, because I've worked on mods before in the past. When a big update comes out, something's going to break and you have to go in and fix it, or it's just not going to function exactly the way you want, or maybe they change some kind of mechanic and your mod just doesn't work at all. So for that reason, most of those mods, in fact, I'm pretty sure there was only one that was updated after the last public test server, they're just not going to work. There's going to be something broken on them and they're not going to work. And there was only 47 of them. The game's been out we're coming up on 2 years now. There's only 47 mods. So I think that's just a hint at what's probably going to come, and that's going to be, there's not going to be lots of mods. And like I said, there's 2 reasons for that. Number one is going to be, and most primarily, I talked to some people who work or are familiar with mods, and basically what happened was in one of the recent updates, I think it was the Into the What update, but I'm not exactly sure which one. I think it was the Into the What update. The developers changed something with their Unreal Engine, with the Unreal Engine Packer or something like that, so it's much harder to actually mod the game now. And if you go look over at Nexus mod, you'll notice that it seems like in general, from what I've seen, or at least the games I've played, games that are made in the Unity engine tend to have way more mods, because apparently they're much easier to mod. Unreal Engine games are supposedly harder to mod. And I mean, I've tried to go into the game files and it's been a royal pain in my butt. Like, I couldn't actually get to any of the information I wanted. So I can definitely see why that would be, like, why people would be not wanting to do it, because it's just harder to mod. And then secondly is going to be the fact that the game is primarily played on consoles. And guess what? Most console games don't have mods, at least from my experience. So if the far majority of the players are on console, and it's also harder to mod, there's just not going to be people modding. There may be a couple people that are just diehards that want to do it, but when you go look at the Steam player count, and it's only in the low thousands, and even after they update 1.0, and I'm sure it'll go up a little bit, in the long run, the majority of the people playing the game are going to be playing on console, most likely via Game Pass. Those people are probably not going to be able to have they're not going to be able to activate mods. It's the reason why the developers have basically stated that there's little chance that they're going to have dedicated servers, because there's no reason. How do you do that? Like, how would I have, like, let's say I was able to even let's say someone created one of these great mods. How would I even be able to use the mod if I'm playing on PC and the person I'm playing with is on console? let's say they added one of these, I wanted to download it, I'm using it, that the person I'm playing with wouldn't be able to use it because they're on console and they can't install it, so they can't play it, therefore we can't play together, and it just kind of makes the mods irrelevant. So you'd only be able to have PC players playing with PC players, or you'd have to play by yourself on PC, and I know most of you watching this are probably playing on console, and while it'd be awesome if console games could have mods easily installed, it's just not a reality right now. So those are the reasons why I don't think it's going to happen. I would love to see it happen because honestly, it would give me a reason to keep playing the game. I know I've played through many games before and it's like, oh, I'm just kind of bored of this. But then if you throw a mod on it, even if it's just something like a texture pack or something like that to make it different. And that's another thing that I just forgot to mention was if you go to the Nexus mods page right now, I think it was like about a third of the mods on there were just texture packs. Some of them, like it was just changing the way the weapons look or the canteen looks, like making them look like a juice box or different swords from different games. That's all well and good. That's not really going to add much to the game. There was some quality of life stuff on there, but there was nothing that was like adding like new content. There's games like I'm playing Terraria right now. The Calamity mod adds like tons of new content to that game. Imagine if there was a similar mod for this that after the game was finished, somebody added a mod that just like doubled the content or doubled the number of bosses or just made like all kinds of things like that. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think the game will get mods after? Will there be mod support afterwards? Would you like to see it? And just let me know in the comments down below. If you made it this far, make sure to hit the like button and consider subscribing for more videos just like this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.